the whole concept of sustainable development and green cities being something that has influenced me from quite a way back. And now in terms of climate emergency and all of that, it seems even more pertinent and vital that's how we look at things. So yeah, when I was working in Greenwich on Greenwich Millennium Village, I was lucky enough to go to a conference in Rome all around sustainable development with examples from all over Europe. And it was just so inspiring to see what was happening, whether it's Spain, Germany, Austria, other places. And just that idea of what was possible from seeing some of those examples. And I can't name any of them to you now. I've forgotten the names of the places, but it was really, really inspiring. And then I worked in Tower Hamlets, where every development was a car-free development, and yet the politics of that and the challenges around the impact of that, not just in terms of community views on it, but things like how we rehouse people who are working and need a vehicle for their job and things like that. All kinds of challenges around how you make that work in a borough like that, and relatively easy in somewhere like Tower Hamlets, where you can walk fairly quickly across the borough and certainly get around by bus and tube, and more challenging to bring that thinking into a place like Redbridge, where I am now. And I don't have a car. I want to get everywhere by public transport. I think that's the way to go. And learning how that is and what that experience feels like, and very car-dominated transport system.
How far can we go in non-polluting mobility systems and walking, cycling, and public transport in outer London boroughs compared to inner London boroughs? How much of a different problem is it that you're facing there, Mark?
See, it depends what you're focused on. So obviously there's the issue of air pollution, and we want to stop pollution, and therefore getting people into electric cars is better than having them in cars that pollute. But the roads are still full of cars. So getting rich people onto public transport is by far the most important thing, rather than getting poor people into cars, whether they're electric cars or otherwise. That's to me, that's not a sign of good economic development. But the challenge for me is looking at how do we structure the development of the place so that it supports that kind of change in what they call modal shift. Yeah, just changing the way you live your life, so that you don't think, oh, I've got to have a car because I've got to take all this food round to my mate's house, or go shopping and buy all this food, which is probably what a lot of the journeys are locally. They're little local journeys with people taking their shopping home or whatever, or going to visit somebody. We've got to get to a point where people understand that all of those journeys are contributing to a problem for everybody, which you can cycle, you can walk, there are other ways of doing it. And people can start to see that if they experience it. But I think it's hard to tell people and show them without them experiencing it. And so I'm really interested in, I certainly haven't studied this any deep way, but I'm really interested in that whole behaviour change piece around modal shift. And if you look at what's happening now with fuel prices, and who knows where that's going to end up, but there comes a point where the fixed cost of running your own car, and then the increasing cost of fueling it, just becomes ridiculous when you look at what the alternatives are. And I just want to get people ahead of that curve, rather than it all being driven by money. It needs to be driven by social good and health and other much more positive factors.
Active travel was the phrase I was looking for, and the sort of positive spin that has. But so you mentioned the kind of some of the kind of punishment end of the incentives. The higher cost of motor vehicles and gas and so on. What about the push factors from the council? How much of a role can the local authority play in that behavioural change piece, do you think? What is your role in terms of demanding that people change their behaviour, and how passive are you in that and waiting for other factors to push people forward? How do you get people ahead of the curve, Mark?
Well, exactly. If anyone knows the answer, let me know, because I don't think I am sitting here knowing the answer, but what I've got is the commitment to doing it, and I'm working with colleagues who are working through some of those potentials. The one I talked about earlier, the community hubs. So rather than expecting everybody to come down to Ilford to talk to the council or talk to the job centre or the, whatever else it is, we should have a much better offer in each of the localities. That's the whole point of these community hubs. It's an integrated way of working so that people can come in the door and get the full range of services in one place. And I know lots of people have talked about one-stop shops before, and there's all kinds of good and not so good examples of it. But I really think if you think about it as linked to walking distance, travel arrangements, it does open up another perspective on it.
And what about planning policy on car parking? Because in Waltham Forest, they're requiring that any new development that comes forward, this is a neighbouring borough, I should say, any new development coming forward has to be car free. And is Redbridge going to go to a similar lengths?
So I think the specific planning policy, we're at the stage where we're looking to review our local plan and update the policies and update the plan in coming years. So from what I've said, you can tell I'm going to be very interested in promoting that kind of thinking. I can't make a commitment today that's going to be the same policy as Waltham Forest, but that will definitely go through a consultation and political approval process that I don't control, but I will have influence over, and you can hear how I'm going to speak to that. I think that the car park thing is really interesting because when you look at Redbridge, for example, you've got people driving in from Essex to park and get the train into London. Is it good for the local economy to have those vehicles coming into the borough? Is it good for local businesses? Is it good for local people? Is it good for the health of local children? That's the kind of debate we need to be having, because some of those car parks are certainly an opportunity to do something different.